how to rebuild your life even after total destruction, which I call ground zero. To do this, I think it's important to understand programming and why implementing life change can feel so difficult. Have you ever been driving to a new place or doing something outside of your routine and ended up going by habit? Maybe you were supposed to stop at the store after work and you went straight home, forgetting completely to go to the store. That is programming. Doing the thing out of habit without thinking and acting on autopilot. And that's how much of our life is lived. It's a balance between taking control and allowing, but trusting our programming to get us to where we need to be. Our autopilot isn't a negative thing, but if we're not aware of it, we can't use it to our advantage. An example of how our autopilot works to our benefit is our very breath. We don't think about breathing. This is a perfect example because in times of stress, focusing on our breathing and regulating that can get us back to a relaxed state of mind. And when we're going throughout our daily lives, we don't want to continuously have to focus on our breaths and remind ourselves just to breathe. Autopilot does control most of our lives, however. Think about being on a plane. The captain has control just like we do of our breathing, but most of the time, the destination's preset. So when the plane gets off course, it readjusts to where it's supposed to be. Autopilot on a plane controls the ship, but it also has a captain. When the plane gets off course for whatever reason, the internal controls readjust and set it back on course. And this explains why us making life changes can feel so difficult. Us trying to implement life changes like taking the controls on the plane and steering it in the direction we wish to go, as soon as we let go, the autopilot readjusts and sets us back on the course that was predetermined for us. That's programming, and when it's operating correctly, we can even use it to our advantage and trust it. Rebuilding after total destruction has to do with this autopilot. Our destruction usually has to do with behaviors that are ran by this autopilot that has been corrupted in the past. Our programming happens when we're very young. It's out of our control and it's beyond our understanding. And I have the perfect analogy to explain that, especially for people around the age of 30 who can all relate to this experience. I remember being very young watching the Twin Towers on 9/11. I didn't understand what was happening and it was out of my control. We all lived through the war on terror and had friends and family members who have been overseas and even lost their lives, sadly. This one destructive act affected our entire country profoundly. And it caused us as a whole to live a program in the back of our lives of war. It affected our decision making and the beliefs we had about certain people, or manifestations of the destructive act that took place when we were much younger, as was the war on terror and the war. This is just one example of how a destructive event can affect our decisions and our beliefs in our future. It's important to understand each and every one of us have destructive events, whether they may be one event that is easy to identify or numerous smaller acts of destruction that sort of form a web throughout our past that are harder to identify and untangle. That's just one prominent example. Each and every one of us have destructive events or patterns in our life that happened in the past and affect us today. It's important to start to understand these destructive patterns or events in our lives because I believe that the key into moving forward with them and beginning to reprogram is acceptance, truth, and responsibility. This destruction in our past affects the way we believe and perceive the world, causing us to live by fear or lies. And a huge part of beginning to reprogram is accepting, finding truth, and adopting personal responsibility. Life change isn't about grabbing the controls and trying to override this automatic pilot, but by uncovering these destructive events and patterns in our past, we can, with acceptance, truth, and then adopting responsibility, begin to reframe our beliefs and our fears to reprogram this autopilot to work to our benefit, or at the very least, not work against us. See, we're not in control of the past, and it's not our job to even understand it, but how we show it today is our responsibility. Still, much of our life is out of our control. But by reframing our beliefs and learning to live by truth rather than fears or these twisted perceptions that destruction leaves on us, we can begin to reprogram our internal control system and allow positive change to take place in our life from the inside out rather than trying to force it. And our automatic pilot affected by the destruction in our past, placing us back on the very course that we were trying to escape from in the first place.